how much do you really want it? Because I know that the people who really want it make it happen because they're just out here grinding every second of the day.
There are so many people that work so hard and they are where they're at and they can't get out of that. They aren't able to. They don't have like the resources to be able to get out of that.
It's not about working hard because that's so vague. It's about, I genuinely think, how much do you really want this?
Welcome back to Middle Ground. I'm John, the host of Radical Empathy. I will be moderating today's discussion between teen millionaires and minimum wage workers. We had 2 dropouts today, so our cast is all female. Our first prompt. If you work hard, you'll be rich. Agree or step forward?
When I think about hard work in my brain, it genuinely goes to janitors, fast food workers. That is a grind. That is hard work. What I genuinely do not consider hard work, but I want it so bad.
I lift 100 to 120 pound dogs into the tub. And then after I'm done washing them, I lift them back out onto the ground. It's hard work. You got to be dedicated and you got to love what you want to do.
There's working hard physically, like doing physical labor, and then there's working hard in consistency, and then there's working hard with intelligence, like working smarter, not harder is kind of the term people use. But I think a lot of people are consistent because they kind of are forced to be consistent. You kind of have to wake up and do what you got to do because you have bills to pay and a life you want to live. But a lot of people are working consistently and staying in the same place versus okay, my game plan is I'm gonna work hard at this so that I can get to this position, which will take me to here, to here, to here. And I don't know, I think when you have the ability to conceptualize what that looks like for your long-term state, then that's where the working hard does lead to you being rich in several areas. But I think a lot of people are consistent in their work, but that doesn't mean they're actively trying to get out of being in the same financial position that they are.
Mm-hmm. And I feel like a lot of it has to do with risk. Like if you have this grand idea or you want to do this, you can do it, but it's going to take a lot of risk, and that's really scary for a lot of people. And you know, if you want to, for me, I started multiple businesses, and when I did, I had to pour a huge chunk of money, and that's such a risk. For example, I bought a nail salon, and it failed. And I poured so much money into that, and then I just had to, all right, buy money, throw it down the toilet. So, you have your wins, you have your losses. I've had my losses and I've had my wins, and that's just kind of how it goes.
Mm-hmm. No risk, no reward.
All right, bring in our disagreeers.
I feel like the statement that you made about it's how bad you want it, I feel like I could say I know so many people that want to get out of where they're at, and they want to so bad, but they can't, and it's just hard for them. And immediately what comes to my mind is my parents, and then that goes hand in hand with they became parents. They can't just stop doing what they're doing. They can't, my mom is a preschool teacher and my dad is a contractor. And my dad's the smartest person I know. My mom's the most driven person I know. And they both could do so much more with what they are the gifts that they've been given in life, and I know they could work so much harder. They want it bad, work more than anybody else to be out of where they're at, but they can't. It's just they just can't stop. And like you're mentioning, you bought a nail salon and it tanked, and sorry to hear that. Okay. But we don't our family wouldn't have had the money to just let that fly out the window. They couldn't take that risk, because if they take that risk, we're done. Yeah. We don't have that sort of resource to be able to even jump into that. Mm-hmm.
Do you think that, to piggyback kind of off what you were saying, do you feel like your career and life being able to hit its absolute potential stops at having kids?
No. I'm just saying that for my parents specifically, because they came to my mind, and I was what are things that are stopping them? And that's the fact that they're parents, and that my mom's is a very nurturing mother. Her number one goal is she wants to see her kids succeed, so she'll never sacrifice herself. Yeah, she's never gonna stop caring for us so that she can do what she wants to do. Like, she's sacrificing herself for us. And so, like, I talk to her all the time about, like, Mom, like, you could do so much more. Like, you can, you know, like, she wants to, like, her little dream she's been up is she wants to, like, decorate cakes and stuff. And, like, she is so good at it. And she, like, has a little, like, folder of all these, like, ideas. And I'm like, do it. Like, just do it. But she can't because she works, like, every single day at school. Like, she's a teacher. She's there from, like, what is it, like 6:30, 7 a.m. to, like, 6 at night. She's there at the school, and she doesn't have really time to do that. And then when she's not there, like, she's trying to help me or my brother, and, like, it's just, like, that's her role. And then my dad is working every single day, all day.
Yeah. Do you think that somebody's absolute best period in their life to pursue their goals and dreams is before children or before marriage? Like, do you think it's when someone is one in themselves and doesn't, or just like for all of you, kind of that question?
I mean, I think it can, like, happen before you have children. Seems to me to be a good time to really try to pursue, because you don't have other things that you're worried about and, like, tying you down to, like, deal with. And, like, so, like, that's obviously, like, I want to get done with all of my schooling, get a job, everything before I get married, before I have kids, because that just seems like it's gonna hold me down. I'm like, I can't, like, even think about doing that right now. But I mean, there's obviously the cases where people be super successful after, like, that. I mean, what, like 40s, 50s, wherever they're at, like, and they've already had, like, 3 or 4 kids, whatever. But I don't know, I don't really hear about too many people that have that many, like, young children that are really, like, successful. I feel like it can happen a lot before, and maybe once they're out from under your wing.
I don't think that people are willing to take that risk when they have a child, especially because you're bringing an entire human being into the world. So, and it's just like you hear it from every person who's like a new parent or just like a parent in general, is that their entire mind and everything has changed. Their entire world has changed because they have this new human being, and of course they're not going to want to pursue something that is so rocky and, like, take a big risk when they have such a valuable asset. Not to call a child an asset, but you know what I mean. So I think it's just taking risks. People aren't going to take them as much when they have children.
Because your failure is their failure in a sense.
Yeah, like, you can completely ruin their entire life if you, like, really mess up. But I think the reason why I stayed back is because I think I have seen so many hard workers in my life and their work just not be propelled. I feel like a lot of people have luck on their side when they have success, and that doesn't necessarily, like, when people take risks, there's always a bad outcome. Like, I am so thankful that you were able to share your story about your nail salon. Apologies, but there are more stories that don't get out like that, because there are so many, like, failed risks, and we don't hear those stories a lot. And those people can be the hardest worker you ever know, and their work just, you know, doesn't take them anywhere.
I think it's important to remember, though, that some people's goal is to be a mom.
Right.
My mom, for instance, she loves being a mom. She'll do anything for her kids. I call her about the most minor inconveniences. She's like, she said what? I'm on my way, you know? So it's like, I think for my mom specifically, she's not upset that she can't do both, that she can't chase her dreams and be a mom, because being a mom is her dream, and it's enough for her. So I think it's not really a negative thing. My belief is, like, it's not about working hard, it's about working strategically. And when I started and I was doing the events, that was working hard. It was a lot to stand up for 8 hours and continuously pitch to people, and it's tiring and it's exhausting, and that's working hard. But I had a cap on the amount of sales I could make, because there's only a certain amount of people at the events that you can sell to. And so I thought, okay, let me try to work strategically. So I started a website so that I don't have to be limited to how many people I can reach, and that allowed my sales to grow. So I think, like, sometimes we think we need to work hard, but sometimes it's like you need to think of a strategy that will be able to push your sales or your clientele or whatever it is, so that you're not always working for 9 hours and being exhausted, and then you come home and you could have only made $100 from that day, you know? And I've seen a lot of people who work multiple jobs and they're exhausted, but they can only get paid a certain amount, you know, salary-wise, and all those hours you put in doesn't necessarily get you to a millionaire status.
When I was in high school, my parents told me I couldn't get a job. And that was just like, it forced me to look for ways to make money outside of a job. So I did like everything you could think of in the book. Like I resold shoes and jewelry and clothes and Popeye's chicken sandwiches, and like, just anything that you could think. I was doing everything. And then I'd be on YouTube and I'd look at like a social media marketing agency or drop shipping or trading or like whatever it was. And I never really quit because I was like, I have to figure out a way for this to work because I can't get a job. So in a weird way, I've never had a job in my life. I was just kind of thrown into business.
Why didn't your parents want you to have a job?
Because my sisters, I'm not to expose them here, but they got jobs, and then, you know, like getting a job makes you feel like you have the sense of independence, and so they got super confident, and they were, I don't know, staying out late or like really distracted from school, hanging out more with friends, going out to eat a lot and spending the money. And I think our biggest control that our parents have on us is the financial provisions that they set for us, and they were able to kind of supersede that. So when it came to me, because I was the third daughter, they were like, yeah, Kelly, it's not happening.
That's so interesting. I was told the same thing. I was told that I couldn't get a job. I was like, I want to work at Cold Stone. And my mom was like, you're young. You should just focus on school. Yeah. And I wonder if there's a connection between entrepreneurs being told when they're young, like, wait, don't get a job. I mean, your reasoning was different, but my mom was thinking, once you get a job, you're kind of entering into adulthood, and it kind of shifts your mentality of like, I have to get a job, I have to work, and she wanted me to have a little bit more time to decide what I wanted to do. So I wonder if like, if you get a job when you're younger, if that kind of holds you back from chasing your dream.
And forces you to get used to the pattern. That's a really good
I was actually the exact same way. My dad's like, you're not allowed to have a job in high school because you need to focus on school and high school, and then after high school you can get a job. So what I did was literally I would make like bracelets and sell them to my classmates to the point where I got in trouble at school for selling stuff at school, but I still made over like thousands of dollars just doing that because I'm like, I've always had that business mentality in me, and I've always wanted to do that. So I'm like, all right, if you're not gonna let me work, I'm gonna work at school.
Yeah, I sold in school too. That's crazy.
Did you guys work jobs in high school?
Yeah, I was told as soon as I turned 14 I needed to make my own money. I was a babysitter. So that is like so crazy to hear. I've never experienced my parents ever telling me to not get a job. It has always been, oh, you're able to get a job, go get one. I started babysitting when I was 14. I started working at a restaurant when I was 16, and then went to college. Now that I'm in college, I work in the recreation department. I also caregive for disabled and elderly people, and so that's my current job. But my mom has always told me that I needed to get a job because I needed to understand the worth of a dollar, because I know a lot of people that their parents provide for them still when in college, and they don't understand the worth of a dollar. They will just go and spend their money and do whatever they want, and it's like, whereas like I have to hold myself back from plans, hold myself back from things, because I have to like understand like that I can't be spending because it's my money. It's not like I need to know because I'm saving up to pay to go to school. Like I have to put my money in certain places, and my mom's always like, well, I applaud you because now you're like financially smart, like you know what money means and like stuff like that. And I've never had a break. When I was a junior and senior in high school, I didn't have a single day of where I didn't either go to school or go to work. Yeah. So that's just where I'm at.
That sounds kind of exhausting.
It is exhausting.
So we're gonna reset.
Hey, before we go any further, we want to take a moment to say thanks so much to Straight Arrow News for powering the fact checks in this video. Straight Arrow News is an app and website that is on a mission to raise the bar on journalism in a time of media bias and mistrust. Their team of journalists believe that unbiased news should be the standard and not just the exception. So they report down the middle with facts, delivering news without bias, filter, or spin. Plus, their Media Mist tool allows you to discover news news that's being underreported or not even reported at all by different sides of mainstream media. That's why we're so happy to be partnering with Straight Arrow News. The work they're doing gives us a complete picture of the news straight from our phones and tablets with their app. Go to san.com/middleground or click the link in the description to check it out. By clicking the link, you're not just supporting this channel, you're also supporting a group of journalists that are raising the bar on news and focusing on serving you unbiased straight facts. Thanks again to Straight Arrow News for partnering with us on this episode. Now let's get into it.
Our next prompt is, Gen Z expects higher pay than they deserve. Will the agreeers please step forward?
Nobody else? We live in an internet era where everyone deals with the art of comparison, and everyone kind of wants something so easily because of the fact that we see other people getting it so easy. You see somebody post something and it goes viral overnight, and whether or not they had a product, that either leads to them getting a lot of followers, and then once they get a lot of followers, it'll also lead to them getting a lot of sales, or vice versa. And so what happens is you get a lot of people who have become so social media enthralled that they don't put enough time into actually doing what they want to do. They spend a lot of time in like analysis paralysis, which is like, I want to do this and I'm going to do this and I'm going to do this, but they never actually do it. So I've just found that so many times where people, we all have our value and we all have our worth, and if we could all price ourselves at our value and our worth, you could never put a price on it because it's so high. Yeah. And that's kind of how I see where people are at, is people would rather look or just be where they want to be versus actually trying to work. So they place their value at such an excelled rate. And that's, I don't know, it's the social media age. I honestly blame it on that. Yeah.
So I've employed people from the age of 16 up, and then people like fresh out of high school. So it's a big range of people. And the younger people I always have to fire them. And not because I want to, because a lot steal. Like, I don't know, but a lot of people my age have stolen thousands of dollars from the cash register. And I'm like, damn, what the hell? Like, that's crazy.
That's a lot.
And so I have to fire you. I don't like firing people, but I have to. And then even if it's not stealing, it's like, I'm sick today. I'm sick today. Okay, you're sick every day? Like, you don't even want to work here, you know? And so that's just like my personal experiences when I hire people like of that generation. It's just either calling in sick, don't want to work, well, do you even want this job? Or, oh, you're taking advantage of the job, and then you're stealing from me. So all the people I employ right now, I do employ one great younger, but everyone else is older.
And do you, with your like social media, maybe the comparing your lifestyle to others, do you think that's what it is, or is there other things you've observed?
I don't genuinely know. I feel like it is a lot of, social media. You want more. But I feel like it also has to do a lot with parenting. Like, you can just live at home and it's fine. And that's what a lot of my employees are like, the younger ones, like they're still taken care of, so they don't really have a reason to be there.
Yeah, I also think it's I don't know. I feel the reason I place a lot of the blame on social media is because people's attention spans have drastically decreased. Where if we go back to like our parents' age, they would wake up and they would work all day because that's kind of all they had to do, right? But they had their times very planned out. They had to do something, they do it immediately. Procrastination wasn't as such a high level as it is now. But now with so many distractions in place, people work for 1 to 2 hours and then they're no longer stimulated. They get kind of bored. They don't really want to do it. Like that just need for hard work is just not there unless they're constantly being motivated.
The work's also often being done like on a phone or a computer.
Yeah, true.
So it's like a very distracting environment.
I
Changed my mind.
Why'd you change your mind?
As you guys were talking, I started to think about people who I've hired, like work for hire type things, and I have noticed that their pricing will be ridiculously high, but I'll take a chance on them because I'm like, okay, you value yourself, and I believe in people like pricing at their value, but then a lot of the times I find myself disappointed with the product that I receive, and I'm like, you kind of overpromised and underdelivered, and I think that's because like, I hate to say it because I'm a part of Gen Z, but I think it's because we are missing the grind time, the part where you like put your head down and you work on your skills. And I also believe in like free, then fee. And I think Gen Z are kind of just jumping straight to the fee, and you're like, yeah, this is gonna cost $1,000. And I'm like, okay, I'll take a chance, and then it's not $1,000 worth of work. So I think like for me, even though I'm in Gen Z, I didn't do that. Like I would get speaking engagements and I would do it for free, you know, because I was in my grind time and learning how to speak and making sure that I was giving people a really good event before I started to charge thousands of dollars to come and speak. But I think my generation is kind of like, as soon as they get the passion to do it, they're trying to charge the high prices, but then they're not delivering the value that they're charging. So when I think about work for hire, I'm like, yeah, I've had a couple situations where they were charging way too much for what they did. But I also believe in like, yeah, you should charge like at your skill level.
We got to bring in our disagreeers.
Of course. But I'm also Gen Z. Just want to put that
Gen
out
Z
there.
is the best.
Gen Z defenders. Assemble.
I think where I primarily disagree is the fact that I firmly believe that a lot of companies will take advantage of your hard work, and a lot of companies will pay you a specific amount and expect you to do so much more than what your job title entails. And I think people's work really does get taken advantage of, especially in the workforce, especially in the minimum wage workforce, because you'll have someone doing the job of like their entire manager and still getting paid the amount of like a regular barista, just for example. So I don't think Gen Z is necessarily asking for more than what they deserve in terms of like working, you know, regular jobs. I understand what you mean though, especially with a lot of businesses, especially with a lot of hair businesses specifically, people will charge extremely crazy amounts, like $700 for braids. So like I understand what you guys are saying, and I feel like that definitely resonates more with like niche works like graphic designers and like very things that don't necessarily require hard skills, or I guess hard skills. So I understand where you guys are coming from, but I do believe a lot of companies will take advantage of younger people because they think they're not hardworking and just like pay them less. So I think I can understand both sides, but that's where I stand.
Yeah. I feel like companies don't necessarily take advantage of younger people, but people in general. Because,
Well, yeah.
you know, so I feel like with the younger people, with anyone, like if they don't think that their work is valued, then don't work, but still get a job. And I feel like a lot of people just don't even have jobs these days. It's just a lot of playing video games at home because mom and dad are supporting them. That's what I see a lot.
Well, what I see from people because I work in a video game industry as well, I see a lot of people who don't have jobs, not because they're not applying to them and applying themselves, but because the job market is terrible right now. It is extremely hard to get a job. Before I got my minimum wage job, I had applied to like 100 jobs on Indeed, on LinkedIn, and I definitely have the credentials to do the work, but people aren't hiring. As much as people are saying, oh, we're hiring here, we're hiring here, they're not actually hiring. So it's very luck-based. It was even luck-based that I got the job that I got. So it's not that people aren't actually looking for jobs, because a lot of people are. They just cannot find jobs. And specifically for video gamers, a lot of them are in the software engineer and just like computer science route. And that field is completely saturated right now, so it's really hard to get a job in that industry.
No, your statement definitely like opened my eyes, because like while I'm driving down the street, I see like, you know, we're hiring, like every 5 seconds. But then I hear like no, they're actually not hiring. But why do you have the sign on your window? You know?
Yeah.
I think I do want to say one thing that I cannot honestly admit is I feel like I will never fully, unfortunately, be able to understand your perspective, just because from the way I've never worked a job. And so being able to hear it is really refreshing and like really opens my eyes, like kind of the stark differences where we were like, oh, $15 an hour is enough. And you guys were like, no, it's not. But it's like, realistically speaking, I've never been able to experience that to understand it. So the way I think is going to be kind of misconstrued in the same way, like for us, we're always trying to hire new people, and we're like, it's so hard to find people to hire, whereas you guys are like, the industry, like it's really hard to get a job out here. So I think that's one thing that for me, I'm just kind of going through it in my head, like, oh wow, this is really
I'm
awesome.
the same exact way as a business owner. Like I'm hiring, and I'll post it and I'll advertise for it on the Instagram, on Indeed, and nobody applies. And I'm just like, hello, like what's going on here? But then everyone's complaining about not having a job. So I'm like, maybe it's just the different types of industries we're looking at, or maybe we're just not looking in the right areas, the right spaces. But there are always jobs. You just really have to do your work to try to find them. And so what actually works really well is when people actually physically come in and say, are you hiring? And then I'm like, yes, I'm hiring. And it works out like that.
I feel like a lot of this is like reminding me of the job I had in high school. I worked at a restaurant, and speaking about like taking advantage of like the younger workers and things like that. When I applied there online and I got the job, and I applied to be a busser there, and by the end of it, I wasn't like increased in pay, but I was also a host, a barista, taking to-go orders, running food, and answering phone calls, making everything. The only thing I couldn't do, what they asked me to do every single day, was take people's orders, and I said, I'm not 18, I can't do that, I'm not allowed to do it. They had me like doing things I really wasn't supposed to do. And I never like saw like a pay increase or anything like that for that reason. The only reason I would get a pay increase is if like the minimum wage in the state went up, because I worked there for like 3 years. But like,
Wow.
And so they did that for all the girls that worked there and they called them like our little group. It was our group, which was high school girls, and they would do that with all of the girls that worked there. And I loved that job, it was great, but thinking back on it, it's like, yeah, I was doing things that I didn't apply for, and like they didn't say, oh, now that you're gonna be making the drinks, like we're gonna, up your thing, instead of just, I applied to just wipe down the tables. And so I'm like, here I am doing that. And then with hiring with them, it was like, I would see people come in all the time, hand in their resumes, and they would literally tell me to just go put them away. They're like, we're not gonna look at them, like we don't care. And they would ask us girls, do you have friends that wanna work here? And that's who they would hire. It's just really different, thank you for saying you don't know it because you haven't experienced it. And it's like, yeah, that like the experiences can be weird like that sometimes. And it's like, I'm very fortunate to have worked there, because I believe everyone should have that experience at least once, because now I don't. When I'm like in a restaurant and a server maybe is rude to me, I'm like, you know what, I've been there, I know what it's like, and I'm just gonna let you do that, because I have had some horrible days in the industry of restaurant before, so yeah.
Going back to what you guys said about them taking advantage of people, my first job, I worked at Taco Bell. I was hired to be a cashier. They had me bussing tables, they had me cleaning up the poop in the bathroom, they had me doing all that, and this was back in 2015, so the minimum wage wasn't as high as it is now, but they didn't increase it, they didn't do nothing, and I don't think that's fair, at all, because you hired me to do this specific thing. How are you gonna find the time to train me to do all these other things?
We'll reset and go to the next part.
Okay.
I want a husband who earns more than me. Step forward if that's true for you.
Yeah, this is awkward. I say that I want a husband that earns more than me, because I'm just me. I want to be a mom, and I want to take time off to raise my children, and I already know that the job that I want to have is going to be in the medical field, hopefully, and I always say that if it doesn't work out, I'll marry someone I find in medical school. So I'm like, I want to be able to support myself if I don't get married directly out, have money, do my thing. But once I get married, I do want to have a period of my life where I can finally relax. I feel like I haven't been able to, and then when I have kids, I want to be there for those fundamental first years of their life.
I feel like every guy I've ever dated has had less money than me, and every one of those guys unfortunately kind of took it out on me. They didn't like that I was more successful or had more money than them. It was always a fight, and it doesn't need to be a fight, but I kind of learned I guess it's that ego masculinity, or they want to be better, they want to be like the man, like the olden days. And it just never works out for me, because they're always trying to like overstep my shine. And it's like, I'm not trying to outshine you. Like, you don't need to do that. But it always comes down to like the men want to feel like the man. And so if they don't feel like the man in a relationship, they don't really want to be in the relationship. So it's really hard. It's really hard to date when you are more successful than the average Joe, unfortunately.
Broke men are intimidated by successful women.
Yeah, unfortunately, everyone I've dated.
The shade. I think for me, like, okay, this one might be a little bit controversial, might ruffle some feathers, but so I was in a relationship with a guy who actually, it wasn't like a case where he wanted to step on my toes. I think he was just overly supportive. But what ends up happening when you have a woman that makes a lot of money and a man that makes next to nothing is resentment grows on both sides. Because naturally, as a woman, your role is to provide in the sense of taking care, and a man's role is to provide in the sense of taking control, in a sense.
Yeah.
So what happened is I was taking care of everything and paying for everything and planning everything and doing everything. And so I started to look at him less of a man, to where conversations, like we'd never like yell at each other, but it'd just be like, you start resenting, like it gets disrespectful, you don't really care for them as much. And then on his end, I feel like it was a constant trying to prove that he was a man, trying to prove that he could actually play that role, but it was hard for him to ever do that because he literally could never do that. And it was just a case where heads just kept clashing. And I don't think a relationship where a woman makes more than a man will ever work. My aunt always told me, she said, don't marry for money, but go to where money is and marry for love. So, boom.
That's shrewd and good advice. Why did you hesitate?
Personally, all I want is a successful spouse. Who makes more doesn't really matter to me, but at the end of the day, I do want princess treatment, if you understand. Yeah. So I feel like to get princess treatment, you would typically have to go for someone who makes more than you. Obviously, that's not hard since I'm a minimum wage worker, but I would prefer someone who is able to take care of me. But I don't think in the future I would necessarily have to go for someone who made more than me, but I would prefer to, just because I would like to be taken care of. But also, just me personally, it's sometimes hard to accept things and hard to accept when people want to spoil me and like when people want to buy things for me. So I don't think, I'm just kind of like in the middle. Like I would prefer someone who made more than me, but at the same time, it would be hard for me to accept like them just taking care of me, because I don't think I've just had too many people in my life to just
swoop you out from under your feet. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think where we place the blame is the finances, when really we need to place the blame on security in oneself. So everyone does like security and being able to make money. When I have found, even when I do date guys that are making less than me, if they are a confident man, they don't care about how much money I have. They don't care about what I do. Like, they're gonna make sure they pay for everything. I won't even know how much money they could have more or less than me, but they understand their role as a man and not their role in terms of I need her to make more or less. So I think the issue is insecure men are getting with women that they revere at first and then later resent, instead of just going after a woman understanding my role is to take care of her no matter her position in life.
Could you envision a partnership where a man wasn't a financial provider, like you were the sole financial provider, but he had security and contributed in a role that was important to you? Is that something you can envision?
Well, I don't think I could ever have a house husband, but I do think.
You couldn't have a house husband. And why
Yeah,
not?
but I think he would still need to be the sole provider, whether or not I bring in more or not. Obviously, like, I would add and aid in the finances, but if I'm the breadwinner and also the sole provider, I don't think that can work. But if I'm the breadwinner but he's the sole provider, it's just, I would obviously still do my part in taking care of the household and the children and whatnot, but I don't know, it's not how I was raised.
I actually kind of disagree with that statement, because I wouldn't mind having a stay-at-home husband. I honestly wouldn't. But the thing is, I just want him to like be a man and not like, not think that I'm outshining him, not make it a controversial thing, and I'm the man, I need to be providing, because I don't care about if you're the man and you need to be providing. That's not what I care about. I care about who you are as a person, and if you're gonna start acting like, well, I need to start doing more, or I need to be better than you, then that's where it gets tricky. And then also with the whole if you're gonna stay at home and do that, that's totally fine with me, but at least take care of me then in terms of emotionally, and be there emotionally for me, and not just lay on the couch,
Play 2K all day.
Yeah, no, I would not like that, not at all.
Well, I was going to comment on your first controversial statement, but you already recanted it, so it's okay. But I was going to disagree when you said it absolutely can't work. I was going to say, it can work. There is going to be the resentment aspect, but I think that's where communication comes in, where you have to sit down as adults and express how I can be better in certain ways, because even if you don't bring in more money than me, or you can't step up financially, there's other ways that you can make me feel secure. So if that's, I need more support so that I can go hard, yes, I need more support, or I need that TLC when I come home, or I wanna make sure that the house is clean, when I come home. So I think there's other ways that the man can support you, even if it's not financially. But I do want someone that makes more, just because of the fact that I think that, especially in the Black community, we deserve to be able to be in our feminine energy. And I think a lot of the times the woman is typically the one that becomes the man. And we're on top of it, we're always making all the decisions and trying to be the woman at the same time and the nurturer. And I think we deserve to focus just on nurturing. And so that's why I would prefer to be in that feminine, my man's making the money seat, but I definitely think that it can work.
Okay, we're gonna bring in, thanks for being patient, bring in our disagreeer.
Okay, I've been in a relationship where I was the one who made the most money. I was paying for everything for at least the first 6 months. And I honestly didn't mind it. In order for a successful relationship to work, including money, it takes 50-50. Say I get the water bill, you get the trash bill, or whatever. I just like taking care of the people that I'm with.
Why do you think that relationship ended?
You want the truth?
Yes.
He cheated on me.
Oh no.
With my best friend of 17 years.
That's
Wow. So you lost both of them?
Yeah.
That's ridiculous.
Oh, that's so stupid.
And
wild.
the thing is, I was still coming home. I was still cleaning the apartment. I was still cooking him dinner. I was still doing everything, and he still did what he did.
I'm so sorry
That's
to
usually
hear
how it
that.
goes.
It's okay.
I think that's kind of what the issue is sometimes when we decenter ourselves from a traditional relationship, the man being the sole provider, and we kind of explore other options like the 50-50. You kind of run into these really crappy men who just take advantage of that, making it kind of hard to explore, oh, well, maybe I wouldn't mind taking care of this person. And I think that's kind of where I'm at too, because it's just I wouldn't mind taking care of someone, and I wouldn't mind making more, but I also want them to take care of me. And it doesn't necessarily have to be financially, but just take care of me. And some guys just don't do that. Some guys just aren't worth it. I mean, yeah.
Obviously.
Screw him.
Yeah.
Screw your ex-boyfriend. Screw your best friend.
Do you think that you feel any resentment about the fact that you did take care of him, you did do a lot for him, and he betrayed you?
Honestly, no. Everything happens for a reason. There's a set time and place for everything to happen, and everything happens for a reason. So I just took it with a grain of salt, and here I am today.
That's a very healthy
How
do you guys?
Some Zen control you've got there. Okay, we're gonna reset. $15 an hour is enough for minimum wage. Agreeers, step forward.
Yeah, I think that's such a difficult question, because I think, who really decides the minimum amount that somebody should make, and then I think also it's kind of different coming from us when we haven't ever really experienced having to work a minimum wage job. But the reason that I said it is enough is because I think it is just supposed to be something that gets you in the door to be able to afford the base level of living. But a lot of times I think people kind of just get used to, okay, I should be around these numbers, Or, you know, you get a job, you enjoy your coworkers, you get used to it. There's nothing that really propels you unless it's something serious in life to push forward and say, okay, well, now I'm going to find a new job or move forward from this. I think a lot of people in this life get comfortable and they get complacent, so it doesn't allow them to move. Yeah.
Yeah, and I feel like talking about coming from just myself here, like right when I graduated high school, obviously I had no college experience, no work experience, whatever, but I like refused to work a minimum wage job, so I went on Indeed and I looked at any job that I could get that doesn't require all this stuff, and I became a nanny, and for like a more well-off family, and I got the job, and I didn't have any experience and stuff, but I made way over minimum wage, so it is possible to just not have any experience, do your out-of-the-box research, and find something interesting to do.
Bring in our disagreeers.
Well, I have a lot to say about this one. So I believe that minimum wage should be increased because it's not a livable wage, for one. You cannot live off of $15 or $16 an hour in California. You can't really live off $15 or $16 an hour in any state, for that matter. If you worked a 40-hour job, hard work, on minimum wage, you would be making around $2,500 a month. And that's not enough to even get an apartment in California. I mean, you may be able to find something with like roommates, maybe get a deal for like, I don't know, $1,000 a month, but it's not a livable wage. You can't get groceries, you can't take care of yourself. I mean, luckily, some people can stay with their parents and save up their money, but for other people, it's just not possible because other people get kicked out at 18. Other people get kicked out for being, you know, gay. So it's just like people don't have the option and the comfortability to just survive off of minimum wage, especially with one job. That's why you see so many families with multiple jobs for minimum wage, because it just does not cover your living expenses at all, at all.
When you say like, oh, you work a minimum wage job so that you can get out of that job to work a better job, how do you think people are gonna get out of their minimum wage job to get another job? Like,
yeah,
that's
so I guess one like tiny example is you'll work a minimum wage job to gain enough money to like get licenses and certificates. Like if you want to become a real estate agent, it's not that much money, and you can use that, you know, the money that you're making at that job to put it towards getting a real estate license, and then boom, then you have all these opportunities ahead of you.
Real estate is a very saturated industry where a lot of people fail. A lot of people don't have the skills necessary to be a successful real estate agent, and since I said it is very saturated, it's very hard to be successful in a situation like that. And when you're working a minimum wage job, you don't have a lot of room to just save money, okay? Everyone says that you're one step away, or you're one medical issue away from being homeless, and that is absolutely the case. I'm not sure if you guys have good insurance or if you guys even visit the doctor very often. I don't know your life, but it's very expensive to get anything. Just to get a pair of glasses, you can be like $300. So there are so many living expenses that is overlooked when you don't work a minimum wage job that go into like working a minimum wage job.
$15 an hour is also before taxes.
Oh yeah.
So it's definitely not livable, and also with inflation, even I look at the prices of groceries and I'm like, let me take this off, let me take that off, because it's just ridiculous. So I think the minimum wage should match what the prices are looking like. I don't think it should just be like, yeah, you live off of that and we're gonna keep increasing the prices of everything.
Right.
That's just not, it's not possible. So I think it's a no-brainer, like it's absolutely not enough.
$7.25 was the established minimum wage in 2009. It is 2024 and it has not moved. Now, they move in California, it moves almost like every year up, but so do the cost of living, okay? When they actually raised the minimum wage for fast food workers to $20, a lot of the fast food chain owners, in return, upped their prices. They cut the hours of the people who worked the minimum wage jobs. They just do everything to keep poor people down.
Even with what you said, when you said you can like get one job and then look for others, or you can chase your dream while you're working the job, that's always my advice. Like, you know, have a job to be able to sustain your living arrangements and the bills that it costs you, while also on the side like doing what you love. But I think at $15 an hour, that's really hard, because you also need money to be able to pour into your business or pour into your side hustle. So if it's not even enough for groceries, you're definitely not going to be able to, let me start this new venture on the side. So I think you have to have enough to be able to do both.
Yeah, I totally agree. Like $15 an hour, if that's all you're doing, that's not a livable wage.
A question I have for, you're all business owners, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Do you have employees who work for your businesses for minimum wage?
Yeah, no, I actually don't pay any of my employees minimum wage. It's obviously higher than that. And I could pay the minimum wage if I wanted to, but I respect my employees too much to do that. But like what you said with the fast food example, like, you know, if the minimum wage increases, then they just increase, you know, what they have to sell, which it depends on the business. Like, for example, the meat industry, I cannot just raise the prices because they're just going to go buy it from a different meat distributor, and then I'm out of business. So we do have to keep our prices the same all throughout, and that's just how it is. And the meat business is very competitive with prices, especially since we're wholesale and we're selling to restaurants and stuff. So the price we have to try to get the price as low as we possibly can in order to actually sell.
How about you? What are the size of your teams?
Oh, mine?
Either one.
We decrease every single month, unfortunately. But I think right now it's a hard one because we have so many extensions. But I'd say on average within the last couple months, it's like 15 or so. And that's because we have in-house legal counsel, in-house sales and all that. But we unfortunately have to make the decision sometimes where I've also found that sometimes a team can be smaller but mightier. And so we've decreased on that end. But I pay everyone over industry average, and then we have commission-based incentives and bonuses. Because I just believe that everyone should enjoy the same quality, if not better, than what I live. And I always want to put people on the right track to get there to where they can live. Because I think life is so great when you do have that sort of financial freedom. So I want to put them as close as possible as I can to get them there. And you know, sometimes people graduate from there and do better, which I love. And sometimes people stay with us and they're able to do amazing things as well. So I love it. I was gonna say to the question, I think a lot of times we focus so much on the pay. And obviously you're gonna have the absolute extremes where it's like, this may be super inaffordable or this is very affordable. But I think where a lot of people mess up is not even finances, I think it's time management. I think people will go work 8 to 12 hours a day. Maybe you sleep for 8, so we're looking at like, I don't know, 16 to 20 hours. And with that free time, they kind of use it to rest, which is where you should. But in life when you are trying to get somewhere, it's kind of like when you're going up a hill. The journey up is going to be very difficult. You're going to get some cuts and bruises, and it's going to hurt. But when you finally get to the top of that mountain, it's like, okay, all of that was worth it. And I think that's where a lot of people mess up, is their time management is off. So even when they do have something that's putting them in a stable or great situation, wherever it is, there's so much stress that's in tune with that they're not able to effectively manage their time to put more towards something else.
Okay, we've got to reset. The rich have a moral responsibility to help the poor. Agree or step forward?
Okay. The impact you leave on other people is the true meaning of your legacy, not how much money you make. But I think it's tricky because I know a lot of people would probably argue like, okay, well, if I was poor, but I was able to become rich, then you should be able to do that too, and I don't have to give you my money. But I do think that what makes the world a better place is when you can see someone struggling and help them and understand that it'll come back to you in some way, shape, form, or another, and not feel, I guess, so stingy with it could never be wired in me to not help somebody if I see them in a position where they should be helped.
Personally, I don't think it's necessarily the rich's or a rich person's obligation, or I don't think it's necessary for them to specifically care for the poor. I think it's the government's responsibility to make sure that their citizens are okay. And they don't do enough. And I feel like at the end of the day, the government kind of creates a divide. And I feel like it's divided into 3 sections. And I feel like at the very middle, the middle class people kind of hate both sides in a sense. They hate the rich people because they're extremely rich, and they hate the poor people because they're poor and they're taking all of the assistance that they can't get. And that middle class people, they just work extremely hard and they can't really get anything, because I feel like a lot of rich people and people with a lot of money, they get a lot of handouts. They get a lot of free things. Like, say if you were signed up for, you know, like American Express, and they give you like 20% cash back. I don't think that's actually how much they give, but you get more stuff when you have more money as opposed to when you're poor. And there are just a lot more expenses, I believe, as a poor person that we overlook when we're rich. But I don't think it's necessarily a rich person's place, or not even place, but I don't think they have an obligation to help poor people. Should they? Yes.
I think some of the richest people I know are some of the worst people I know, and some of the saddest, miserable, depressed people I know. And it mostly comes down to, like, they're just not helping anyone but themselves.
I think help is like, it could be anything. It may be, okay, I'm gonna help you with one thing this month, you know, but I'm not gonna help you every month of the year. Or I feel like you can also give back in different ways. Like, you can go and speak to, you know, the people who are trying to build businesses. You can speak to them for free and give them the resources and the knowledge that you have. And I feel like I do that a lot, where I'll talk to people who are, they're like, I have this idea and I really wanna start a business, and I won't charge them, you know, to tell them the secrets that I have. And I feel like that's still you helping the poor without you just throwing money everywhere at everybody. So I think it's subjective to how you wanna help.
A lot of people that are at the top can't even see far enough to understand who the people at the bottom are, and like how, like what they're going through. And even for me, like trying to understand one side, but then being on another side, it's a hard battle to kind of figure out.
Donate what you can to like the people that really need like help to get out of their situation. Maybe that is that 1% that's helping them get to where their potential is. And like, I mean, I see, like, I'm from nowhere of like a rich family at all, and my mom gives money back like a lot. Like, she gives what she can, and I'm always telling her, like, Mom, like, maybe you shouldn't, you know, like, donate that or whatever. And she's like, you know what, it'll be provided back for me. Like, what I give, like,
Amen.
She believes that it'll be provided back to her because she just has a beautiful heart. But like, and so seeing that my mom's able to do that, I know that people that are way well off than her have way more than they can definitely do that too. So it's like, that's how I feel about it. Just
My mom always told me, she always said, if you don't give when you don't have, you won't give when you do. Mm-hmm. And I always thought about that like through my entire life. And so that was kind of my motivation. Because I know it's gonna pay me back in someday, but you have to instill those habits.
Mm-hmm. Shout out to moms though, because my mom actually did something similar. Because like I said, like very low income background, but over the pandemic, we would actually like make hot dogs and like food for the homeless people, and we would like get stuff from the like food from the dollar store, and then we would like set up somewhere at like a random business that was shut down because it was during the pandemic, and we would just kind of like talk to them, and we would like hear their stories, and it just kind of even opened my eyes so much more to like, wow, this is really your life. This is how you got there. Like what the media pushes out about homeless people and just all sorts of like lower income people, you just don't know the half of it. Because someone I spoke to who, he actually couldn't keep a job because he had seizures and he just wasn't able to support himself. And you know, not everyone has like a family and that can help them in situations like that. So I feel like when you open your eyes to having like a little more empathy and a little more compassion to others, if you do things like that, that didn't cost more than like $20, okay? We're not asking for like hundreds of thousands of dollars for people, and just doing something as simple as that really helps people. It really made people feel like they had someone. And I feel like if people in better financial situations were more keen to doing more specific things that help people like that, then we would be in a better position, because it would also open their eyes to what life is on the other side. Because
I feel like some of the most giving people I know are people that are like middle class, because they know what like it's like to be like lower than that.
yeah.
This is gonna be a little bit tricky. I'm gonna say Currently, I have $100 or less in my bank account. If that's true, you come in. Now I'll say, currently I have $1,000 or less in my bank account. If that's true, come in. So you come in when it's true for you. Does that make sense? And then you'll just hang out here till we have everybody. Currently in my bank account, I have $100 or less. All right. Currently in my bank account, I have $1,000 or less. I have $10,000 or less. $1 million or less. $10 million.
Wow, you guys are balling like that. Good for you. But it's just like, I don't know, it's kind of like a stark divide. It's just like, wow, people really have a lot of money in their bank account, and like, I'm broke as hell right now. You know, I don't know, it's just very interesting to see.
I think a fun fact that I've always like known, especially recently, is that 70% of Americans have $1,000 or less in their savings account. So I think a lot of times when we see, like you said, like the stark divide or contrast, and wow, these people have a lot versus maybe I'm one of the only ones that don't, it's actually a very common thing, you know?
I think it made me extremely grateful, just seeing the difference between the $100 and where I sit now. But I have been at the $100 and I know what that feels like, but it also made me grateful that I was able to put in the work no matter how hard it got or how challenging it was for me to see the other side. When you're looking at the $100, you're like, I'm never gonna get to the place that I need to get, but I'm grateful that I was able to.
What do you think was the difference for you to finally take off just financially?
I think it was belief in myself and also not letting the family members or the friends around me who kind of got stuck and not knowing how do I get to the other side, and that kind of holds you back from actually taking the first steps. And for me, I started really young when I was 15, so I didn't have a lot of those setbacks in my mind of like, I can't do it or I've never seen it. I was like, let me just take the first step and see where it goes. I took it upon myself to go to a local like event. It was kind of like you set up your table, you put your products on it, and you kind of just pitch and sell to anybody who attends the event. So that's how I started. So I think the difference was like me just having that belief that anything is possible. Whereas when you're older, you kind of have already seen the struggle and you're like, I can't get there. It's no point, you know? But I was like, what if I just try and let me just put myself out there and see what the difference will make?
Would you say that you had a lot of family members or just like people around you in your circle that had a lot of backlash for what you were pursuing?
Yeah, because it's kind of like, you wanted to set them up to be able to do that without all of the challenges that I faced, especially me being a woman of color. It's also like, I don't come from a background of having resources and having mentors and having people that have already built successful businesses. So I think kind of looking at your family members, you're like, wow, how did you not get to do this as well, you know? Yeah. So I think they kind of faced the backlash of like not being able to help me get there.
So I would be lying if I said I didn't have my grandpa's help. I took over my grandpa's business, but when I did jump into that, it wasn't doing anywhere near what it is right now. And then with those opportunities and with my grandpa's knowledge, I was able to start my own business from that and start like a whole array of different journeys throughout that help.
The jump from like 1,000 to 10,000, like I was like, oh, because I was like, I'm like barely over 1,000, and then like when I come out to like 10,000, I was like, guys, I don't even have anywhere near $10,000. Like I've never had that in my life. It's inspiring, and I mean, like I look up to people like that, and I mean, it would be a dream of mine to be sitting on that side, but
we will eventually.
Right.
It'll be right there.
Yeah.
So that's all the time we have. I want to thank you all for participating. It's been really interesting to hear all your perspectives, but that's a wrap. Make sure you watch other episodes of Middle Ground. When you leave comments, remember these are human beings. And thank you for watching. Subscribe to Jubilee, and we'll see you next time. Thanks, guys.